All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Thursday morning. Got a couple accidents to report, one at Buckner and Fairfield, one at Clemson Road and Farrow Road, one at Highway 6 and Edmond Highway, one at Polo and Alpine, and the one at South Lake and I-20. Going to be pretty chilly today, high 55 with some clouds. Tomorrow, rain 46, and Saturday, a mix of showers with a high of 51. Currently 34 in downtown Columbia on your Thursday here on The Game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here. Oh, we got a lot to get to. Jack, good to see you. Missed you guys yesterday. Sounds like Firehouse was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. Terry did a great job filling in for you, and glad to have you back, man. A lot went down yesterday, and as we begin the 9 o'clock hour here, a little bit before 9, we got some big news that we got to get into.
Yeah, we'll certainly get into everything that Coach Beamer had to say yesterday, recapping signing day, talk about the latest with Landon Duckworth, Carson Baker, and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I guess not unexpected. There were some more staff changes to be made, and you told me about 15 minutes ago it does appear that South Carolina is going to be looking for new running backs coach as they've moved on from Markel Blackwell.
Yeah, so it's interesting with Blackwell because I think this is a move that definitely needed to be made. Like, think about it. Like, Beamer kind of alluded to it yesterday that they you mentioned Carson Baker, but he kind of did say yesterday, like, unless something happens, like, they're not going to sign a high school running back. And you got to think about it. Like, they haven't signed a high school running back since, what, Matthew Fuller? Like,
2 cycles ago, I guess now.
That is, I'm sorry, but that's inexcusable. Like, that's really inexcusable. So I don't know what's going on there. Like, I know you had Amari Thomas committed to you from, well, he was committed to Florida State, then he committed to South Carolina. Now he's back at Florida State. So it's like you had a running back committed, but he ended up leaving. I don't know. We'll see what happens if you can. I doubt you'll get Carson Baker now. I don't know what his relationship is with Blackwell, but I can imagine. He's probably going to either go to Florida or maybe North Carolina. Who knows? Maybe he will come to South Carolina ultimately. But the point is, South Carolina hasn't signed a running back in the last 2 high school recruiting cycles, and it's just not ideal. And the running back production was just not good. Really at all. I mean, ranked 118th nationally in rushing yards at just over 111 yards per game.
Looking at Carson Baker's 24/7 profile, where it will say who their primary recruiter was, Markel Blackwell was his primary recruiter, so I don't feel good about your options of landing him today, considering you just moved on from him.
No, and Shane also, as we get into things that Shane had to say, they need to go get a transfer running back. I mean, that's of the portal needs they have. I think that's one of the bigger ones because right now you're losing Rasul Faison. You're losing Oscar Attaway. Those are 2 scholarship running backs you don't have anymore. You're basically, hopefully you'll have Matt Fuller and Jawarn Howell back next year. But honestly, I mean, what are you going to get out of them? Because your production level with them, I mean, it was hit or miss because you did not use them well. And I think that all goes back to the way this offense was just ran in general. It was abysmal this year, right? So
right.
I think it's good to see this change made because it needed to be made, honestly.
We'll get into more of this in just a second, but first, it is 9 o'clock. And as always, let's hit things with our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
And it's time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. Again, as we just mentioned a moment ago, Markel Blackwell has been relieved of his duties as the South Carolina running backs coach, as he came in beginning of last year, because you moved on from Hardesty.
Yeah, after 2023.
After 2023.
Yes.
So common theme when you have a bad year, the running backs coach is one of the first people to, or I guess the third person to go in, in this instance. But when you look at the numbers over the years of the Beamer era, the running game's just been atrocious for the most part. The only exception was last year when you went out and got an already established, already proven running back in Rocket Sanders that we knew what he was, right? And look, he had the injury concerns because of his time at Arkansas, but when he was healthy, what he's capable of. And for the most part, he came in here and did that. So that wasn't on Markel Blackwell from, hey, look, he got Rocket Sanders in and developed him and turned him into this great running back. Like, no, he was already a good running back, and he came here and continued to be that when he was healthy. Like, you don't have the proven track record at all in the Beamer era, going back to Hardesty too, of developing these guys, which is a big, big problem.
No. And, Blackwell's tenure just goes down as a pretty rough one. I mean, Rocket did some good things last year, but I mean, that was him coming as a transfer. It's not like he was really developed, right? He was just getting back to being healthy and being the Rocket that we all knew from his time at Arkansas. And it's interesting about Blackwell. I mean, his tenure was almost over before it really started. I mean, there were reports out there that maybe he was going to Ohio State. There was some interest there around March of 2024 when he was hired. So, I mean, I remember that. I think we were supposed to talk to him in a press conference during spring ball, and I don't think we ever ended up talking to him because of this stuff that was going on out there. So, just very, I think that kind of sums up how this whole thing went. I mean, it just was not a great hire, and it just did not work out.
Yeah, you're jogging my memory on that now, because I do remember something along those lines, because I think we were worried that for the second time in that offseason,
because James Coley was the wide receivers coach.
For the wide receivers coach
for like a month.
Was it even a month? I remember he had his introduction press conference.
He did.
And it was a couple weeks later that he left and went back to Georgia.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you were risking losing two guys in kind of similar fashion there. Obviously, the Ohio State thing didn't end up materializing. But, yeah, I mean, the running back thing's been an issue. And let's look at within the context of this season, right? And we talked about the usage of guys like Jawarn Howell, guys like Matthew Fuller that did show you some things. And we're really like, hey, why aren't these guys more involved? And yes, they're part of that is Shula, the play caller, but the individual position coaches on game day are responsible for getting guys out on the field at certain times, right? They're managing the rotations. And that's something that Beamer even talked about. What game was that where he said at halftime, he specifically said, hey, we need Fuller on the field more?
LSU game.
Yeah, because he had the long run for the touchdown, the only score they had that night offensively. And we talked about it on Monday, like, hey, he didn't touch the ball for two quarters after that. Well, what's the deal?
It was so inexplicably ridiculous that stuff like that happened all year. It felt like where somebody would do something good and then they would for whatever reason they would not see the field. Are these guys getting punished for doing good or something? It's just mind-boggling to me that stuff like that actually happened this season. And I think in my opinion, I think just because I don't know. I mean, just because of how much stock they put into Faison and having to wait it out on him for so long, you were kind of, I think everyone was so fixated on what he could do based off his numbers at Utah State. And we're kind of hoping okay, this guy's going to be the replacement for Rocket Sanders. He's going to go out there, have a great year, and be that guy. And I think when you have so many chips or eggs in that basket, you probably want to use him as much as possible. I mean, he was the starting running back for most of the year, and I think that's ultimately why Fuller and Howell didn't get the carries as much as him. And, Faison goes out there and has a year that's half as good as what? And he put up half the numbers that Rocket did in an entire season. So
Yeah, and look, no, it's not one single person's fault that this team ended up 4-8.
No.
Everybody is under the microscope. That's why you moved on from Mike Shula. That's why you moved on from Lonnie Teasley. That's why you're moving on from Marco Blackwell. And the offense is the primary reason why this team struggled. We talked about it so much this year. The defense kept you in so many games, right? You were in position to win so many of these games because your defense did good enough. weren't perfect. Defense wasn't as good as it was a year ago, but they did enough to where if your offense was just a little bit more competent, you're, I don't know, maybe you're 7-5, which, hey, that's not phenomenal, but it's better than where you're at right now. So, and look, this goes back to the fact that Beamer knows next year is make or break. And if there is any doubt about Markel Blackwell as your running backs coach, you got to make a move. Now, again, just like the OC thing, how attractive is this job? Is this a place people want to come and become your running backs coach outside of just paying them a ton of money to do so? We'll have to see, because now you're in the market for an OC, an offensive line coach, and now running backs coach. Now we can, and we'll get into this a little bit more in a minute. We can assume it's Sean Elliott staying on as the offensive line coach. You don't know that for sure. You're at least weighing other options to see. So you've got a lot of moves to be made in addition to getting the portal right coming up here in a couple weeks. This offseason is going to be busy, man.
Still don't have an OC also. I mean, yeah. I really don't know what is taking so long at this point. I mean, and now especially since big-time jobs are opening up. Like, we're talking like Ohio State, A&M, technically Bama. Not really, since Grubbs is
He's a
co-OC, but Jamarcus Shepard went to Oregon State,
right? But he wasn't calling plays. Grubb calls plays.
Yeah. Oregon also. I mean, like we're talking like big time jobs that are opened up, far more attractive than South Carolina. So, I mean, and I think everything honestly starts and ends with this OC hire. I mean, like if you let's say for instance you hired, I don't know, Decker from Old Dominion. Just an example. Nothing there. Hire him. Can you bring the O-line coach and the running backs coach? And I don't know what their numbers are, how they did this year, Old Dominion-wise, but just an example. That would, because I feel like the offensive coordinator is going to have some say in what happens, and it may just be easier to bring multiple coaches from one school if you can. But yeah, I mean, this just now makes it like, to me, this is just another botched hire by Shane, and I think we're kind of seeing him, not admit defeat, but kind of like, hey, I screwed up with some of these hires, and I'm going to get this thing right, like he said multiple times leading into this offseason. Now he's got a chance to go out there and do so. And look, if you're going to make changes, you might as well do it across the board, right?
Well, the same thing that we said about the OC situation, I think can apply to running back and all these position coaches as well. Is it them, or is it a fundamental problem with the way Shane wants things done, right? Because if you continue to have to replace coach after coach after coach at the same spot, you look at the common denominator and say, okay, well, maybe it's you instead. Maybe it's the way that you're looking at this, or the way that you want things done from that group that maybe you need to take the hands off of. And I'm not saying that's the case. But again, when you have a 4-8 season, nothing is exempt from being examined. So maybe Shane has to reevaluate what he's expecting out of these coaches, what he wants them to do offensively, what he wants out of his running backs. I don't know. It's all on the table right now. And again, here's another position you got to hire.
And it makes it harder for a running backs coach to come in, because guess what? I mean, they don't have a high school running back signed right now. Nope. They are going to have to go out into the portal, and I think you're going to have to go get like 2 running backs in the portal. Like I think you're kind of in that situation where, because again, it's all screwy from the season of like, you did not use Howell and Fuller enough to make me feel like, and maybe some people feel different, but like you're basically banking on their potential of what they did this year. Like they didn't really play a ton when you really think about it this year to make you feel like, yeah, that's our RB1, our RB2. Like they could go out there for a full season and kind of just do what Faison did with under 500 yards of offense.
Yeah, well, and that's I'll save this for the other side because I want to get into some of the quarterback stuff too in a second, but you've got this past 2 years an example of things working and not working when it comes to the portal. We'll get down to the other side. Also get what Coach Beamer had to say about quarterbacks and the latest on Landon Duckworth too. Is we kind of we're still technically in the early signing period. It lasts through tomorrow. So yes, yesterday was the day where most people end up signing. You still have the signings and announcements and stuff happening today and tomorrow as well. So we'll continue to unpack that as well as review what happened yesterday too as we continue on with the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltree with you on your Thursday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Thursday on the game. I don't know if anybody told you, Jack, we have our client open house thing today. So.
Yeah, Randy kind of mentioned that it was going to be a bit hectic in here as Captain Dave's got his Christmas sweater on.
Dave's got his sweater on. There's food upstairs. Dave's having a good day.
I saw some muffins are out there.
It looks. We'll get the scraps of whatever's left over.
I was about to say, where do we fall into all this?
Yeah, the clients always come first, but it's always funny because our studio, we have these glass doors where you can see into where Jack's sitting, and you can look into my producer studio here through the little window, and they bring these tours of people in, and
every week it's like this.
It's kind of like being animals at the zoo. Because
basically, yes.
One of the people that works here will stand at the window and kind of point and motion and stuff about what we're doing in here, and people kind of look in, they wave and smile and all that kind of stuff.
Well, little do they know we're talking about them.
Yeah, it feels like kind of being animals at the zoo sometimes.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
We appreciate all of our clients, and we'll get to meet some of those people as the day goes along. But we're unpacking early signing day yesterday, and also the news of the morning, which again was Markel Blackwell being relieved of his duties as South Carolina's running backs coach after 2 seasons. And, his 2 years here in that role, you saw the good and the bad of going out and portaling running backs, right? Because a year ago, you knew you needed someone, so you went out and got Rocket Sanders, and when he was healthy, did exactly what you needed him to do. Good, solid year. Obviously went on to the NFL. Is he with the Browns now? I know he was with the Chargers initially as an undrafted.
Yeah, I know he scored that first touchdown with the Browns to open the year. My computer's being slow today, so we'll see if I can get this up here. But yeah, like I said in the last segment, he's with the Browns still.
Yes, he is still with the Browns.
So, Like I said before, I don't know how much credit Blackwell necessarily deserves for that. I think in terms of, because I remember Rocket kind of talking about last year the process of getting back to being 100% healthy and kind of changing his body a little bit. Sure, Markwell deserves some credit for that, right? But in terms of the production that Rocket did this at Arkansas, so it's not like he went from being some bad running back to this great running back with nearly 900 yards of offense in his lone season as a Gamecock. Rocket had all the tools, the physical capabilities to go out there and do what he did. He's a 6 foot, 230-pound running back. He's got the speed, he's got the size, and he was very good at South Carolina last year.
Well, and on the complete flip side of that, and look, we spent so much of this offseason talking about Rasul Faison and his eligibility and all that kind of stuff, and thankfully, days before the Virginia Tech game, that all came to an end, and he was going to be eligible to play. And, he got off to a little bit of a slow start this year. We thought, okay, well, maybe it was because he wasn't, getting the reps that he needed because they didn't know if he was going to play and all that kind of stuff, and just never ended up being anything wow, right? He had some solid games, never went over 100 yards a single time this year. Some of his better performances will include one really, really long run, like that 4th down run he had against Oklahoma, and then not a whole lot after that. So yeah, the averages are good. Total yards are solid, but again, it's okay, he had 50 yards against Oklahoma. Well, 36 of that came on 1 carry. He had 46 yards against Coastal, or 57 yards against Coastal. 46 of that came on 1 carry. 26 yards against A&M. 22 of that came on 1 carry. You know what I mean? You can poke holes in it a little bit where he didn't materialize the way you wanted him to the point where we got to the end of the year, we're like, hey, why aren't we featuring Fuller and Howell more instead of this guy?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you were able to hit on a guy that was established and proven in Rocket Sanders a year ago, and you weren't able to hit on a guy that we thought could do something similar this year in Rasul Faison. And that's the reality of living in the portal, right? We've talked about some of these programs that built their entire rosters with the portal in the offseason. It's you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know how those guys are going to mesh, and that's just a tricky proposition. And when you narrow it down to one position group, it's the same kind of thing. Is you can't live and die every single year off of having to rely on the portal to go get a running back.
And it's surprising because Faison he had less than 100 carries this season. So, you go back to Rocket last year, as we're talking about him, he had 183 carries at South Carolina. second most in his college career. 881 yards, 4.8 yards per rush, 11 touchdowns. I mean, great season last year. Faison had about half those numbers with 470 yards and under 100 carries and only a couple of touchdowns. The interesting thing is, despite him having less carries, like you said, Tyler, the other running backs really didn't have a ton of action in games. Like Fuller got a little bit here and there, but nothing consistent. Even Oscar Attaway, you would think the other veteran running back in the room would get some carries, and that was the case at the beginning of the year. But after like that Virginia Tech game, I mean, he barely got any usage throughout the year. So I think it's more so having to do with the scheme, I think, honestly, and Shula's willingness, like desire to have a pro-style pass-first offense. I think that's kind of what screwed up the season here is you're not really using the running backs the way you maybe did with Rocket Sanders or, any of these other guys, Mario Anderson. So I think, with the whole running back situation, I think some of it's on Blackwell, some of it's on Shula. Everyone as Shane Beamer would say, I think everyone kind of has a hand in it here.
Yeah, well, and again, you're looking at another signing class, and I'm checking. I don't see anything on Carson Baker. I think it's at 10 o'clock when he's supposed to officially announce. It does seem like A&M is the trendy.
A&M is also in the mix for him, too. That's right.
But like all the projections now, it seemed to have him going to A&M, and we'll see what he announces coming up. But it does seem like Carolina is not going to be in the mix for him. And that could have been potentially, because even Beamer said it yesterday. He's like, we're not expecting any new ads of guys that aren't committed, which would have included Carson Baker, because, the Duckworth and all that kind of stuff we'll get into in a minute. Those guys had at least been committed and are waiting to sign, where Carson Baker wasn't committed. He decommitted the other day from Florida, and now is looking for a new home or looking for a new place to sign and to commit with, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be Carolina. Maybe that was the final straw for Blackwell. Like, hey, maybe we can get this kid, and then it seems like it's not going to happen, and now you've made the decision to move on from him this morning.
I mean, it's another move that you had to make, right? This is boom or bust for Shane, and you might as well go down swinging if you're going to be gone next year. But, I think he's going to do everything he can to get this thing right, and I think that's what we're seeing here is literally like any possible change. What's the saying with with your food, like no crumbs left on the plate. Like that's what we're seeing here with South Carolina and Shane Beamer is making sure there are no loose ends. Like everything needs to be tied up, and every move that needs to be made heading into the season.
Yeah, look, there's nobody that's exempt from being examined. Even position groups that we thought did well this year, like Mike Furry. You know what I mean? I think we feel pretty confident saying he's going to be back next year, but if Beamer thinks that that's something that is holding them back and could be better, then you make a move there too. Again, I don't think that's going to happen, but again, nothing's off the table when you go 4-8 and when your job is quite frankly on the line next year for Shane Beamer.
Yeah, I mean, nothing should be off the table. No stone should be left unturned if you're South Carolina.
That's right. Now, what's the latest on Landon Duckworth, and what's Carolina's strategy going to be when it comes to the portal and quarterbacks? We'll get into what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday when talking to the media as the Extra Point continues on. It's Hourhead and Jack Beltry on your Thursday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you on your Thursday, day 2 of the early signing period, or I guess day after what we recognize officially as early signing day. And one of the bigger stories of early signing day for South Carolina was what didn't happen, and that's in reference to Landon Duckworth, of course, the quarterback out of Alabama that had been the relationship with South Carolina has been a long one. Right? I go back to, I think it was 23 when he first committed. And he was like a sophomore in high school or whatever he was at that point in time, to decommitting over the summer, or decommitting later on, recommitting over the summer. And now we don't know which way he's going to go when it comes to ultimately deciding where he plays college football. And I was out yesterday, obviously, which, by the way, my day went nothing as I planned. I was supposed to have an appointment in Atlanta yesterday. Ended up having car trouble, having to deal with that yesterday instead. So my day went nothing like I thought it was going to go. But
did you even make it to your appointment?
No, I didn't. I had to reschedule it.
Wow.
So the thing I took the day off for, I didn't even get to do. And I ended up dropping more money than I cared to on getting my car fixed instead.
Hold on. We have a special visitor.
Uh-oh.
Oh, man. It is, you may know him by a few names. St. Nick.
Oh, my goodness.
Chris Kringle.
There's the man himself.
How we doing, sir? Good. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, you can come on here. We got the setup here.
This is a first.
If you're watching online,
you can see on the live stream.
The man in red.
Santa is
Santa
here.
Claus.
There it is.
Yes.
That's really him.
Would you like to say any words into the big mic here?
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas.
What'd you ask for Christmas, Jack?
How about South Carolina having a better season in 2026?
Ooh, can Santa give us that?
Can you deliver on that?
I'll try.
You'll try?
Try?
Okay.
Fourth quarter, they don't show up.
They don't?
Hey, Santa knows ball.
Santa knows ball. All right. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Hopefully Jack was on the nice list and he gets what he was asking for.
What is this?
Yeah, so this is just everyone, so we have the radio, people listen, but you can also watch on 107.5 of the Game's YouTube channel.
Yeah, Santa, they can see you right now, Santa.
So Santa, they could see you. So the people watching, they could see you. So, and hopefully you're able to deliver on that with South Carolina having a better year. We'll see.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that he knows.
Yeah, take care, Santa.
Well, you know what? If he knows when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake, he's aware of football teams that can't manage to finish the fourth quarter. So I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, Santa does know ball for sure. So.
I lost my train of thought now. What were we talking about?
Well, Landon Duckworth.
Landon Duckworth.
That would be a nice Christmas present.
Right. Yes. Maybe for the soonerness of it, we could have asked, hey, can you get Landon Duckworth to commit to South Carolina? But this has been an interesting process, right? Because he was committed to South Carolina a long time ago. And even when he committed, again, sometime back in 2023, I remember talking to Wes and Chris about it, and we're like, man, that's a really early time for somebody to commit to a place. And hey, don't be surprised this kind of goes back and forth a little bit. And ultimately it did. But we did feel like when he recommitted to South Carolina, okay, he, when he decommitted, he explored other options, visited other places, talked to other places, but ultimately came back to wanting to be at South Carolina. And now at the quite literal 11th hour and 59th minute, we don't know which way he's going to go. And there's a lot of indication that he might end up flipping to LSU instead.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of all came out yesterday morning when I think Chris brought it up on radio, is that there's some smoke now with LSU. And when we go back to the summer when Landon recommitted to South Carolina, I know LSU had interest, but Auburn and South Carolina were his two finalists. And I asked Chris yesterday, is Auburn even still in the mix here? And he said not to his knowledge. So, because that was when Hugh Freeze was the head coach, and now you got Alex Golish, and they've got Deuce Knight and all that. So they're fine for the future right now, it seems like, at quarterback. So, but yeah, I mean, this is kind of crazy that this is happening right as signing day is here. And Landon did not sign on Wednesday. We'll see if he signs today. I mean, he was supposed to sign with South Carolina yesterday morning, and that never happened. So we'll see where this goes, but it's definitely not ideal for South Carolina, especially since we don't know what's happening with Lenore Sellers. I mean, they're going to only really have what, as of right now, let's say Sellers isn't here, what, 2 scholarship quarterbacks?
Yeah.
With Cutter, Woods, and Aaron Oland, and gosh, I mean, who knows what happens with those guys?
Yeah, and I mean, you I guess could technically give a scholarship to Jimmy Francis, but that's not really helping out. No disrespect to him, but you know, again, that's not somebody that you're factoring into your mix. And I want to get into that because that's something that Coach Beamer was asked about yesterday in reference to if they need to go out in the portal this offseason and get an experienced quarterback. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, it's something that I've thought a lot about, literally going back until the spring. How do we want to handle things going forward? And certainly we have 3 on scholarship. We may have 4 on scholarship later. Who knows? Regardless, I think you certainly got to keep your options open from that standpoint. Lenoris has a decision to make. We know that. So there's a lot of balls in the air on that one. But, yes, I would be all for a guy that, you know, you could potentially add, you know, to that room to add some depth. Without a doubt, you got Jimmy Francis in that room too, but outside that, and Brandon Cunningham. So we've got some bodies, but in regards to scholarship quarterbacks, we don't have many, and we're young and inexperienced. And I remember, I think I've told you guys, when I was at Oklahoma with Lincoln, there were some years where we had some quarterbacks, Tanner Mordecai, Austin Kendall, some guys that were in our program that transferred because we had Spencer, and we had Jalen Hurts, and we had Kyler Murray, and they didn't want to sit around and wait. And next thing you look up, you're down to like Chandler Morris. You're down to like 2 quarterbacks in your program that you're either recruiting or have on your roster. So I don't want to get in that situation, and we won't next season. But I don't think at the quarterback position you can ever have enough. But there's other positions. Certainly, let's say we only have 5 scholarships available. There's other positions that are certainly a higher priority than going to get another scholarship quarterback, in my opinion.
Quarterback math is tricky, right? Because only one can play at a time. Like a wide receiver, you can have multiple ones out there. Running backs, you can rotate. All these other position groups, you can have guys that play throughout the game. But quarterback, it's one and truly one that is going to play. And, well, with today's ability to transfer as freely as you want to, if you don't think you have a path to play, you're probably not going to stick around. Now, again, the real deciding factor on all this is Lenore Sellers, because he has the option to stay here. He has the option to transfer elsewhere, or he can go to the NFL. And again, if I'm taking bets right now, I lean towards Sellers just going ahead and going to the draft. And if that happens, again, you're left with Cutter Woods and Aaron Oland. Now, guys that we think have upside, but we haven't seen it yet. And I don't know who's leading that pack right now. It seems like Cutter Woods, considering the fact that he played more in garbage time than Aaron Nolan did, if that is supposed to tell us anything. But I think even if Sellers stayed, because one thing that you had not this past season, but 2 years ago, was a experienced backup. Well, I guess you still had that this year with Luke Doty. You had Robbie Ashford that came in last year, backed up Sellers, had to start the Akron game when he got hurt. Luke Doty was your backup this year, and yeah, okay, talent-wise, he's not quite on the same level, but he still had experience starting in the SEC. Even if Sellers comes back, I still think you have to go out there and get a portal quarterback. Just somebody with experience in a worst-case scenario if you need him. I
mean, yeah, I would agree with you. I think you have to go out there and probably get a portal quarterback. And I think a lot of it may come down to, okay, so the OC you hire, again, let's go back to the Decker reference, right?
Yep.
If they have a quarterback that's currently in the transfer portal at Old Dominion, had a great season, the type of season that you thought maybe Lenoris was going to have. I mean, this guy had over 1,000 rushing yards, and I believe 13 touchdowns to go along with a lot of passing yards, like 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, yeah, I think you could – we talked about it before. The package deals work in the SEC. Like, we see it at Oklahoma right now with John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle. We see it at with Vanderbilt with Pavia and that New Mexico State connection. I mean, like, it can be done. Let's see if South Carolina can maybe do the same thing here. But a lot of it is going to come down to, okay, is Lenoris coming back? And what does that look like? Because if he is coming back, he's your starter heading into next year. But I don't think it'd be bad either way to go out there, get a portal guy to kind of bring a little bit of competition to that room, because, I mean, I think we all know Lenoris probably needs it heading into next year if he's still at South Carolina.
Yeah, well, and again, just knowing the fact that in his 2 years as a starter here, Lenore Sellers has been banged up and he has missed at times full games like he did against Akron a year ago. You want to have a capable backup. They can go in there and keep things on the right track and hopefully guide you to victories if that does happen. Because right now I just don't have the confidence and faith that turning it over to Aaron Nolan or Cutter Woods is going to give you the results that you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not an ideal situation right now with your South Carolina, with the quarterback situation, the running back situation. Hopefully you can land Duckworth, but it's not like he's going to be playing next year, right? So, I mean, you kind of have to really figure things out this offseason with what Lenoris is doing, but also what's your backup option if he's not there.
While we're talking about quarterbacks, I want to focus on Aaron Nolan really quick because I have one big question about him that I think is legitimate to ask at this point in time, and I'll get into that coming up next as wrap up the hour. It is the Extra Point. It's our head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Thursday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Tonight, big women's basketball clash as Don Staley's crew takes on Louisville. Tip-off at 7 o'clock. Pregame coverage starting at 6:30. That'll be on our sister station, B106.7. Again, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip for Don Staley's team. I know it wasn't here yesterday, but what a heartbreaker the other night for the men's team, man. Just a brain fart,
Definitely
confusion,
a brain fart.
whatever you want to call it, with Michi there at the end. That just, man, what as if this fan base has not been tortured enough by losing tight games in football. We don't need this for basketball too.
Did you see the graphic that came out the other day with the rankings of all the SEC men's sports and where they finished?
I did.
Oh my gosh.
It's not good.
It's not. I mean, men's sports at South Carolina are just downright bad in 2025. I mean, I don't get it, man. That basketball game the other day though, that wasn't good.
I mean, legitimately 2025 might be an all-time awful, like the all-time worst year for men's sports here at Carolina.
Just in the SEC maybe too. I mean, because baseball was 15th in the SEC. You had football was awful this season, and then you had basketball was 16th in the SEC, and now they're off to kind of I know they're 5-3, but that record will tell you. I mean, they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat, and they are losing to the teams that are much more on their level. So
yeah, hoping things turn around when the calendar flips, and we'll see what Maneri has for baseball in year number 2. But 2025's definitely been a rough year for the men's sports. That's for sure. We were talking about quarterbacks there in that last segment, and I have a question about Air Noland that I think is legitimate to ask at this point in time, because he came in out of the portal a year ago, was at Ohio State, 4-star kid, all that kind of stuff. And the expectation was, okay, well, if Sellers has a good year and goes to the draft, boom, you turn over to Air Noland and we rock and roll with him for a couple years. And it's just not happened so far. You haven't seen enough out of him. The fact that he's not coming in garbage time late in the season, I think, is a pretty big indication. And I have to wonder, because we focus so much on Mike Shula hurting Lenore Sellers. I had to ask, how much did he hurt Air Noland? How much did he put Noland behind the 8 ball to where he's not as developed as he needed to be at this point in time?
I mean, think about it. Air Noland was essentially the fourth string quarterback on this roster, right? Because Lenore's was the starter. Luke Doty was the backup. Technically, you could really go either way with Cutter or Air, but let's be honest. I mean, Cutter got the reps before Air did in the Coastal game, the SC State game, and the Oklahoma game too. I mean, Cutter was the first choice more times than not. So I don't know. I mean, this is a guy that was highly recruited coming out of high school, went to Ohio State his freshman year, redshirted, came to South Carolina. When he came to South Carolina, I'm like, all right. I think everyone was kind of like this. This is the heir apparent to Lenore Sellers. Whenever he has a great year in 2025, he goes to the NFL, Air takes over, and this thing is going to be rocking and rolling for years to come. And it's we're talking about now, you need to go back to the portal and go get another quarterback. I mean, who knows if Air is going to even be here heading into next year. I mean, we'll see what type of decision he makes, but he may look at this whole thing if Lenore's is back for another year, if Cutter's still ahead of him on the depth chart. I mean, why waste another year at South Carolina when you can go maybe even to a smaller school and just go play and get some serious reps?
Oh, and that's what, go back to quarterback math, where it becomes very easy to decipher these things, because if you see somebody that doesn't have a pathway to playing, more likely than not on the schedule that they thought they were going to be on, yeah, they're probably going to end up going somewhere else. I'm not guaranteeing that, but if, Air Noland decided when the portal opens up he wanted to transfer out, I don't think anybody here would sit here and be like, oh my God, I can't believe he left. He'd be like, no, that makes sense, because he didn't, and part of it's on him, part of it's on the coaching staff too, of neither side got what they wanted out of it up to this point. Yeah. And, he would be pursuing greener pastures again. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did. And again, I think regardless of if Sellers is coming back or not, you got to go in the portal and get some kind of experienced quarterback, maybe not to push him in a quarterback competition, but at least to have a experienced backup in case you need it, just like Robbie Ashford was a season ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think you're kind of hoping Sellers makes this decision pretty soon here too, so you can kind of. And Shane was asked about that yesterday in his press conference, kind of towards the end, was like, do you kind of need an answer on Lenoris and Dylan Stewart, guys that have decisions to make fairly soon? And he kind of said, yeah, but he's not going to rush them, obviously. But, he's got coordinators that are interested in this job kind of asking, like, am I going to have Lenoris and Nick Harbor in this offense next year? And players are asking, like, am I going to be playing with these guys next year? Like, it's a really important question to ask, because it's like, I mean, it's true. Like, I mean, that might decide whether a coordinator wants to come to South Carolina or not. Is, all right, am I going to get to work with a real solid potential player in Lenoris, or am I going to have to bring in my own quarterback? I mean, a lot goes into this decision that doesn't just affect Lenoris, but it affects pretty much the entire system at South Carolina.
We'll continue to unpack what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday and talk about early signing day as the early signing window continues on. It is the Extra Points, Hourhead and Jack Beltry on your Thursday on the Game. Oh, Tyler Head here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. I tell you about it all the time, but I'm happy to remind you, you always need to be on the lookout for things around your home that are a little bit off. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues, and that's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. You can go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. If you notice those problems around your home, do not wait, because they're only going to continue to get worse. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com and let our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist help you with your foundation issues. All right, welcome back in. It is the Garden Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head, Jack Feltry along with you here on your Thursday. Wes usually joins us, but I think early sign of day took a lot out of him, so he'll be back in here with us coming up to our busy day for all y'all. And look, I just sit here and talk on the radio every single day. I respect the heck out of what you guys do at Gamecock Central and all these other outlets where you're having to go here and there, and especially for recruiting, because you're having to drive to all these places, go to signings, go to games, all these kind of things. I don't envy the work and miles you have to put on your cars to do the jobs y'all do.
I hope Wes enjoyed his Hall's Chop House meal.
It looked good.
It looked great, but yeah, hope he enjoys that. And I doubt he's taking today off, but probably just to see what is going on with Duckworth. We haven't even talked about him, but Julian Walker, too. I mean, he's got a big decision to make today as well, and seems like North Carolina's kind of getting in on him now a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, this job is it's not easy, and fortunately, I don't do recruiting as much as those guys do, but it is certainly a job that seems like it can be a lot. I mean, Chris was having a big headache yesterday. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart at times.
Yeah, well, this is certainly a time when they earn their money, and obviously we lean towards them on what to know about these guys coming in. Because here's the thing, we get caught so much up in star ratings, right? It's like, well, if you're a 5-star, you're going to be great. If you're a 4-star, you're going to be pretty good. If you're a 3-star, yeah, whatever. But some of the best players end up being 3-stars, and we've seen plenty of 5-stars that end up failing and flaming out. You know what I mean? So it's not a perfect science. And again, these are all based on evaluations from camp and all this kind of stuff. And sometimes you're playing uneven competition that can factor in it too. It's really about what happens when you get on campus, what the coaches do when they get their hands on you, and how they develop you that ultimately decides if you're going to be good enough. Because again, a 5-star is an indication that you're good enough to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL after being in college for a couple years. Now, again, some guys, they get that evaluation exactly perfect. Trevor Lawrence was a 5-star quarterback, and guess what? He was the #1 overall pick in the draft. They nailed that evaluation when he was at Cartersville back in high school. Some other guys, not so much. It's an imperfect science, but somebody's got to do that kind of stuff of giving the stories on who these guys are and what they can be. And again, when they get here, you hope for the best.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it kind of leads us into something here that we didn't really get a chance to talk about last hour, but you talk about stars and whatnot. I mean, South Carolina's typically brought in some pretty highly rated offensive linemen over the years, right? Like for all the criticism that Lonnie Teasley got as South Carolina's previous offensive line coach, one thing he was so good at was recruiting. And he always brought in really good, on paper, high school players, right? Josiah Thompson was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. Darius Gray, the #1 interior offensive lineman, officially signed with South Carolina yesterday. Anthony Baxter signed yesterday as well. So, I mean, and Zion Giles also signed too. So, like, South Carolina's done a good job bringing in talent. It's just the development and getting that to translate to the college level is a whole nother story.
And that's something that Coach Beamer was also asked about yesterday, is fixing those issues when it comes to offensive line development that, again, has been a persistent problem since he's been here at South Carolina.
No, it's a fantastic question, and you're right. We've brought in highly ranked recruiting classes, and a lot of them have done some really good things. But then there's also highly ranked offensive line classes, and a lot of them have done some really good things. And some of them, for whatever reason, it hasn't quite worked out. There's some guys that were part of highly recruited offensive line classes that have transferred from here and went to play at a different place or a lower level. There's some guys that maybe haven't developed as quickly. I think it's a few things, David. One, that's a hard position to evaluate for sure, because of the level of competition. There's a lot of high school offensive linemen that line up and are, blocking guys that look like Fink on the defensive line. It's a compliment as you get old, and or me or whoever, and it's just a different level of competition. So that's one thing you've got to do a great job projecting. And then two, it's when you get them in your program, you've got to develop them. And we've developed. I mean, Shed started as a true freshman. Josiah started as a true freshman. Tro started as a true freshman. So we've done a lot of really good things from that standpoint, but probably not consistently enough. So yeah, you look at everything. everything. You look at, them in high school, what kind of senior years do they have? The level of competition, the overall athleticism, the hunger and the desire to be great. Do they have that? And that's hard to evaluate because we're limited more than ever on how much we're able to go out on the road and get to know these guys. And then you look at everything you're doing within your program, weight room, training room, nutrition, coaching, all that. So, we need to be better, but I know these guys that we just signed have the right ingredients of what you're looking for. When you talk about the linemen that we've brought in here, whether it be from the portal or whether it be from high school recruiting, the ones that were really successful, the Nick Gargiulos, the Torricelli Simpkins, the Vershawn Lees of the world, these guys have a lot of those qualities, and excited to add them here.
And he's right. That is a very tough group of positions to evaluate coming out of high school. You played offensive line in high school, right? Yeah. I mean, the opponents you go up against can vary so much. And yeah, you can be 6'8", 350-pound left tackle, but if you're playing like 1A football and you're going up against a bunch of shrimps coming off the edge, yeah, you're going to look like an absolute monster, but that's not going to translate when you get to the SEC. So yes, evaluation is part of it, but here's the thing. That's why you get paid a lot of money, Shane. That's why you and your assistants get paid a lot of money to figure those things out, because guess what? Other programs do it. The Alabamas, the Georgias, the Texas, the Oregons, all these programs around the country, they figure out how to evaluate that offensive line talent. You need to do that as well, because, again, it's been perhaps, is it fair to say the lack of offensive line development has been the biggest consistent issue of the Beamer era?
I think so. I mean, go across all 5 years that he's been here, offensive line has kind of been pretty bad. I mean, 2 years ago, 2023, I thought that was the worst season that the offensive line had, but so much that had to do with injuries. I mean, for the most part, they were a little banged up this year, but they were worse than 2025, I feel like. I mean, it was just downright bad at times, the blocking and the false starts and the penalties. I mean, it was one issue after another. And, yeah, the offensive line, I think, has been the most consistently apparent problem over the course of the 5 years here, for sure.
And, look, this is just one statistic, but it's a pretty darn important one. Sacks allowed. Let me go through each of the 5 years that Coach Beamer has been here and sacks allowed and where they rank. In 2021, they surrendered 31, which was 9th out of 14 in the SEC. In 2022, they surrendered also 31, which is 11th out of 14 in the SEC. 2023, they surrendered 41, which was 12th out of 14 in the SEC. Last year, they surrendered 41 again, which was 15th out of now 16 in the SEC. And then this year, they surrendered 43. Their worst mark so far, dead last, 16 out of 16 in the SEC. So even in your best year, you weren't even in the top half of the SEC when it comes to sacks allowed. And again, that's just one statistic. There's a lot of other variables,
but it's a big
things,
statistic.
But it's an important one because that's protecting your quarterback, which that is priority number one for an offensive line, is making sure your quarterback stays upright, has time in the pocket to throw, and all those kind of things. And that is something that's consistently been a problem. And again, I give a lot of credit to Lonnie Teasley because he was a heck of a recruiter, and he brought a lot of these great 4- and 5-star talents in. But when they got here, something's gone wrong in the process of getting those guys where they need to be in the development to play at this level, and to the point where I'd say Josiah Thompson even took a step back.
Last
year wasn't great, but that was to be expected for a freshman left tackle. And left tackle is probably the hardest position to play in all of football. Nobody expected him to go out there and be a world beater, but you expected a step forward in your number two, and it's been anything but that.
I mean, he was a freshman All-American last year. So to go from that to the season that he ultimately ended up having is, go look at the pass block ratings on PFF. I mean, that's not the number one indicator of how the season went for him, but, I mean, it was just not a good year for Josiah. You could see a lot of times where he'd get beat off the block and guys off the edge would shed it and come on in. I mean, it was inconsistently bad at best with Josiah, and not all that is on Lonnie. I think at times it comes down to the players, right? And it comes down to the guys you're going up against off the edge. Like you said, I mean, maybe these guys in high school had their way blocking against smaller guys, but everyone's good in the SEC. So you got to be able to bring your A game every single week. And what we saw out of South Carolina was not an A game every week.
And as we're in this process of making staff changes, where again this morning you've moved on from Markel Blackwell at running backs coach, is Sean Elliott what you need at offensive line coach? I'm not saying you have to get rid of him completely. He can just go back to being your tight ends coach. That's a group that I think we'd say is done fine for the most part. But do you have enough from this year where you say definitively, okay, I think Sean Elliott's going to get this group where they need to be if he takes over in a full-time role? He was the offensive line coach basically the back half of the season.
Yeah.
They didn't really get that much better, right?
But they didn't get that much worse, I would say, either.
That's true. So it's like, how do you balance that?
Because Shane was, seemingly pleased with the job that Sean did. And I still feel like I think moving Sean back to tight ends coach could be good, because I think he did some good things there think about it. He's been here for a few years now. Josh Simon was fantastic under his watch. So I think he's done a great job with the tight ends, and I think he did an okay job with the offensive line. I think the O-line just kind of is what it was this past season. So, I don't know how much of besides being more tough and playing with more energy, what else could Sean really do to change the problems that were already there? It's like you can only put so much lipstick on a pig, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you put him in halfway through the year to take things over, to try and guide it to the end, but there's only so much development that can go on at that point in time. The differences in your play and your development happen in the offseason. They happen in spring ball. They happen in summer and all that kind of stuff. And, if you believe that Sean Elliott, when he gets the full offseason with this group of offensive linemen, he can surely get them to a better place next year, then yeah, absolutely, keep rolling with him. But if you're not sure, maybe you do hire somebody else. And again, you can still keep him on staff, but maybe hire somebody else that you feel better about coming in and being your offensive line coach. I don't know. Again, it goes back to the same thing. When you have 4-8 season, when you have as big of a disappointment as this year was, nothing's off the table for evaluation. And for a make-or-break year, you better be darn sure Sean Elliott is that right guy to get your offensive line back on track, because, again, if they play like this next year, you're in trouble.
And it also goes back to, okay, you can hire Sean Elliott, but it's probably going to come down to, you got to make this OC hire first, and then all the pieces to the puzzle can kind of start to be configured. Because, the OC that comes in, they may not want Sean Elliott as the offensive line coach. He may be better suited as the tight ends coach, as we talked about. They may need to, move Mike Furry back to the receivers coach. There's a lot of things that have to happen this offseason, but I feel like the nucleus of it is, okay, you got to make this OC hire first, and then you could start kind of examining who you're going to have at these different positions to coach those guys.
Speaking of the OC hire, that was something else that I believe you asked Shane about yesterday early on in the press conference. We'll get into what he had to say about the urgency of making that hiring, especially as we get past the early signing period. That's coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Well, that's the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you on your Thursday on the game.
All right, folks, let me tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media. The beautiful thing about it is you can take your dreams for that home make it a smart home. Dreams for your man cave, dreams for the living room, and they can take whatever you're thinking about and then just turn it into a reality. You can hit them up today, integratedmediainc.com, or give them a phone call. It is 803-948-8327. Their services include basically anything to do with your TV, your surround sound, your smart home services, or securities and cameras. If you work from home, for me, it was all about my home office. Didn't really have a great connection to the Wi-Fi. Needed hardwired internet, so they came in. They ran Ethernet throughout the home into my office, into my wife's office, and made sure we had a great connection there. And then we went a step further with whole home Wi-Fi. They can also hang TVs. They can hide the wires for you, and they can go all in on that man cave too. Hit them up today. Again, for more information, integratedmediainc.com.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. No, it's not. It's the Garnet Trust Tower presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. When it's just me and you, I get so used to saying the Extra Point because typically in this hour we have Wes or Kristen here with us. But no, it is the Garnet Trust Tower presented by our friends over at Krantz Heating and Cooling. By the way, my week's all screwed up. I wasn't here yesterday. I don't know what day it is. It's Thursday from what my phone says, at least.
It is Thursday. It is Thursday, December 4th.
By the way, compelling Thursday night football game tonight. We can get more into the NFL slate. We may push top 5, bottom 5 to tomorrow because we've got so many other things to talk about today. Cowboys and Lions. One team going one direction, one team kind of going the other direction. which we'll have for you tonight. Pregame coverage starting at 7 o'clock right here on the game. That's a matchup that a couple weeks ago I probably wouldn't have been as into, but Cowboys playing good and Lions kind of faltering a little bit.
Yeah, Cowboys are playing a lot better. I mean, that Thanksgiving game was highly entertaining, and I mean, look, they have a chance now, I think, to kind of get themselves really into the playoff picture. I think I just saw the ESPN graphic earlier, like 34% chance to make the playoffs. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, man, I'm looking forward to this game tonight. Should be a good one, especially with the Lions kind of struggling as of late.
By the way, it's insane that it's already been a week since Thanksgiving. Time goes by too fast.
It really does, dude. It really does.
Yeah, so again, that's coming up tonight. Pregame coverage starting at 7 o'clock right here on the game. We're still awaiting the offensive coordinator hire for South Carolina. This is something that Coach Beamer talked about in recent weeks, wanting to be done relatively quickly once the season ended, and we're obviously 5 days out from the Clemson game, and that was something that Jack asked him yesterday about the urgency around making that offensive coordinator hire.
Yes and no. I mean, I think there was a sense of urgency. I'm not going to rush it, though, just to say that I hired an offensive coordinator. I'm going to make sure I get this thing right. I realize it's a critical hire. The process has gone really well, Jack. I've had some really good conversations with people that, going back for, a couple weeks that I've had some conversations with and I know we're kind of coming down the stretch on that. There's factors at play. All these offensive coordinators that are interested in potentially coming to South Carolina, they have a signing day today too. So they had their focus on signing day and their own teams, and certainly want to be respectful of that, but have had some really good conversations with the guys and a lot of interest in this position, and hopefully we can get down the stretch and finalize this thing here soon. But again, I'm not gonna rush it either, just to say we hired a coordinator by the weekend.
That comment there is actually kind of funny because we talk so much about the calendar and how screwy it is and all that kind of stuff, because he's essentially saying, well, there's a lot of coordinators out there that are working on signing their classes at their respective schools before they take another job, right? Because, again, if you are an offensive coordinator and you leave your school before signing day, well, then you risk the school that you're leaving missing out on a lot of recruits, guys that decide not to sign or uncommit or whatever. So it's almost kind of like a little bit of deception where you say, okay, yeah, I'll stick around. Then when you see those guys sign the dotted line, you say, okay, now I'm going to go. But, that's the nature of the beast. I'm not saying you guys at fault for doing that. That's just kind of what you have to do in today's age of college football with the screwy calendar that we have.
Yeah, the calendar's so messed up. I mean, they have to fix it. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I could take up a whole segment for another day. I find it interesting that he says that about kind of being respectful of letting these guys kind of finish up with their recruiting classes and whatnot. I mean, I don't know. I just think you just got to make this hire. Like, what is stopping you from making that hire? And, you see it right now with, for instance, Brian Hartline, who just got hired as the the head coach at USF, taking over for Alex Gulch. He's the OC at Ohio State, yet he's going to finish out the season with Ohio State, and he'll still help sign the recruiting class for 2026 at OSU. So what's the difference between that and kind of, bringing in, because Hartline's got to do the same thing at USF, right? I mean, he's got to pull double duty. So why not? What's stopping Shane from hiring an OC and kind of letting them do double duty, right? I mean, is it not the same sort of concept, essentially?
You would think. Look, there's probably more nuance to it than we even can fathom at this point in time. But I do know this: the longer this goes, the more concerned we get, right?
Yeah.
Because there are a ton of openings for offensive coordinators, with all these new coaches being hired, all these coaches that are taking other jobs, like Hartline going down to South Florida. You're not the prettiest girl at the dance necessarily. You have to find what you can. And again, you're probably going to have schools that can outbid you for offensive coordinators. You may have situations where the roster at a certain place is better than what you have here at Carolina. That may sway some guys away. So you're not just going to get your pick of the litter here to get whoever you want. And again, the more time passes, the more I become concerned about this.
And I will just say this, just based off of what I saw yesterday, with the reactions to, because I wrote a story about the question I asked Shane about basically what he said with the update on the OC search. A lot of people are going to be really, really pissed if Shane promotes Mike Furry to the OC. I just I don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, people. I just reading some of the comments on the message boards yesterday. Fans are going to be really annoyed if that is ultimately the hire that's made here. Because the longer this thing drags out, the odds I feel like that Furry could be higher. I don't know. That's just my thought process on it.
The optics of that would be you're forced to settle at that point in time, right?
Because that would be worst case scenario.
Exactly. If it came to that, not saying it's going to, but if it did, because the thinking would be like, okay, if you really wanted Mike Furry to be your offense coordinator as option number one, you would have just done that. You would have said, gosh, in the press conference after the game on Saturday against Clemson, hey, we think Furry's done a great job. He's going to be our offensive coordinator. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, and then just roll from there. But the fact that you potentially get into a week plus down the road and say, okay, now Furry's the offensive coordinator, and yeah, you can dress it up saying, well, we interviewed a bunch of guys and we felt Furry was the best option. No, I think people would read that as saying you couldn't get somebody else, so you had to just keep going with Mike Furry.
Let's just remember half the time when Mike was calling plays for South Carolina, did really good things at times, but there were other points where it's like, yeah, you're getting shut out in the second half against Texas A&M. You're getting shut out in the second half against Clemson. Like, I mean, the sample size was big enough, I think, to where it's like we saw what we needed to see. South Carolina, good job, Furry, but I think he's much better fit to be the receivers coach. He's done a great job recruiting. He's done a great job developing. I think that's one of the few positives we can take away from this season is look at what the receivers did this year. Nick Harbor was better. Dre Jacobs had a really nice year. Jaden Sellers, the guy in that freshman room he was the guy, the one guy that wasn't a 4-star of that group, had the best season of the freshman receivers. So job well done by Furry in that regard. But yeah, in terms of calling plays, I still feel like you can go out there and do a lot better by getting somebody from the outside, somebody that's has a track record of developing and doing a good job of running a college offense. That's what South Carolina needs here.
Well, as we said, it is the most important hire that Coach Beamer is going to make in his entire tenure at South Carolina, because the offense is the one thing that's been stagnant more often than not. And you got to get this hire right. Got to get a guy that can come here, hopefully with a college offense that he runs, and get this thing back on track to where you're scoring points. Because, again, your defense is doing fine. Your special teams has been doing fine for the most part. It's that other facet of the game, that 1/3 that's not picking up its end of the deal right now that you need to fix. And obviously that starts with hiring an offense coordinator. We'll switch gears, talk about some other things happening around college football, including who the heck's going to be coaching Penn State, because this saga has been fascinating to watch unfold. We'll hit that coming up next as the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating, rolls along. It's our head and Jack Beltry on your Thursday on the Game.
If you are looking for a reliable local roofing company to help your home or business with your roofing needs, check out our friends at Classic Roofing. Joe Reeder, Max Sawyer, our guys, friends of the program here. They can help you take good care of your roof. That can be challenging, but you don't have to do it alone. They have years of expertise under their hats. Their local company, again, their families live right here in the Midlands, and the guys at Classic Roofing are GAF certified roofers. Only about 7% of roofers nationwide even have that certification. They can do inspections, installations, replacements, and repairs on your roof. You can visualize your new roof and what it would look like at classicroofingsc.com. You can check out their reviews and get a free estimate there. classicroofingsc.com, or give them a call, 803-590-7870. That's the reliable roofers over at Classic Roofing.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Nope, there I go again. It's the Garnet Trust Hour, presented by Krantz Cooling and Heating. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry, along with you here on your Thursday on the game. And as we're in the midst of all this chaos we're still in the middle of the college football season. There's championship games coming up tomorrow that we'll preview more on tomorrow's show. You've got the early signing period that's open as of right now. Still waiting to see a couple of notable names and see if they end up signing with Carolina. Julian Walker's announcement is today at 11:45 over at Dutch Fork. So we'll see what he ultimately decides to do there. And then you obviously have this coaching carousel that continues to spin. Jack, has Penn State called and offered you their head coaching job yet?
I'm sure it'll be around the corner here, right?
Well, I'm only half kidding because they're getting pretty low on their list. So 2 sports radio hosts in Columbia, South Carolina, probably not far away from consideration when it comes to who could coach Penn State starting in 2026 because their options are dwindling pretty fast.
They are. Now, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned have I gotten the job because no, I have not. But I want to bring up this interesting, money stat that I saw yesterday on 3 Posted. Penn State's search for a new head football coach, because keep in mind, they've had so many swings and misses over the last few weeks, has netted other coaches an estimated $370.8 million in extension money. So the greatest thing right now, like besides being a fired SEC head coach with the buyouts that you can get, might be just being a head coach that receives interest from Penn State, because it seems like every time a coach comes up in this search, the school that they're currently at gives them a big extension and a raise.
Well, the most recent example of that was Kalani Sitake. So I left here on Thursday at 3. It's about a 2.5, almost 3-hour drive to get to my parents' house in Georgia, where I was staying on Wednesday night. When I left here, it seemed all but certain that Kalani Sitake was going to become the next Penn State head coach. By the time I got to my parents' house, that deal was off the table, as BYU had found the funds, apparently from Crumble Cookies, to keep them around.
Yeah, so that was funny seeing that somebody, I don't know who it was, I just saw it randomly on Twitter, was that somebody sent Pat Kraft, the AD at Penn State, a order of Crumble Cookies. And look, I mean, I would take that. That'd be wonderful. Now, did you see the funnier part yesterday at Virginia Tech's signing day thing? James Franklin had Crumble Cookies as one of the items for like the snacks or whatever.
Hilarious. And you know what? Good for James Franklin. James Franklin should revel in the misery that Penn State's in right now, because he did not deserve to be fired.
No,
like,
he did not.
The Barstool accounts for the schools are always so fascinating to follow, because they're always on the extreme end of fandom. Following the one for Penn State yesterday was so funny because, they were like signing nobody. They signed like 4 players in their class yesterday, but they put up, they took a screen grab of the national semifinal game they played against Notre Dame, where they were tied at 24 in the weighing-in minutes, where Notre Dame won and obviously went on to play for the national championship, just without context. Just like, man, look at where you were. That was 11 months ago. 11 months ago, you were in the national semifinals, a drive away from playing for the national championship. Yeah, I get it. James Franklin had never beaten, or wasn't able to consistently beat the Ohio States and the Michigans, but you know what he was doing? Winning double-digit games. He was probably going to have you in the playoffs more often than not, and now this expanded 12 and soon to be probably 16-team era, but that wasn't good enough. They said, you know what? We're Penn State. We are Penn State, right? We're going to go out there. We're going to get whoever we want. We're going to get Lane Kiffin. Okay, never mind. We're going to get Mike O'Connell. Okay, never mind. We're going to get whatever. And it just kept falling apart.
It's crazy.
To now, it's like, who are they settling for? And there's debate, apparently. Terry Smith, who's their interim head coach, has done actually a quietly good job, right?
Penn State's going to a bowl game.
They're going to a bowl game.
That's pretty good.
They had Indiana on the ropes until Fernando Mendoza had one of the greatest throws you'll ever see to the back of the end zone to win that game. Like, they ended up having a okay season, all things considered. They got too big for their britches, right? Or flew too close to the sun, whatever analogy you want to use, because instead of settling for a guy that's going to win you double-digit games and have you in the playoff more likely than not. Yeah, was he going to win a national championship? I don't know. Maybe not. But at least you would have been in contention, right? Where now you look at it and say, okay, maybe you're just a 6-6 program going forward. Because here's the thing. You set yourself back so far with all this mess, with recruiting and all these kind of things, your relationship with your boosters, all that kind of stuff as well, by not getting this right. And again, there seems to be debate based on on-through reporting that boosters want Terry Smith to be the full-time head coach, but the school doesn't. And it also seems like if Terry Smith gets hired as the full-time head coach, that means Pat Kraft, the athletic director, is most likely cooked. Because, again, he's the one that pulled the trigger on this.
Oh, yeah.
He's the one that said, well, it wasn't a one-year thing. It's been a long-term thing with James Franklin. Okay, well, you better have had a plan that he clearly did not have.
No. I mean, people are going to get fired as a result of this. I do feel like ultimately they will go down the route of promoting Terry from the interim to the full-time head coach. And I think, honestly, it's probably the best card they have left to play, because who else is out there that they could go out and try to lure in from another school? It's either promote Terry or, in my opinion, I feel like you probably, at this point, you got to go down the coordinator route, right? I mean, what other options do you have?
There is also the option of Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a job right now. You could theoretically do that. I think he's probably on that same type of level of James Franklin. Now, here's the thing. James Franklin is a way better dude than Brian Kelly is. I think James Franklin, with the way he dealt with people at Penn State, is probably a whole lot better than Brian Kelly can do. Brian Kelly's still a good football coach.
And he's from the Northeast.
He's from the Northeast, so he doesn't have to fake an accent if he's going to go to Penn State. Brian Dable also thrown out there, who's also not doing anything right now.
I think he would be a good head coach over there.
So those are some options. But again, those weren't your first picks, right? And I can't guarantee that one of those guys is going to go there and suddenly win you a national championship. And even the Matt Rule thing, because, again, Pat Kraft and Matt Rule are apparently buddies. They went to Penn State together and all that kind of stuff. Even that, before Matt Rule got his extension and before Dylan Riley got hurt, Nebraska's season kind of went off the rails, I never saw that as like, okay, that's definitely an upgrade. Because, like, what about Matt Rule's tenure in college football tells me he's a better coach than James Franklin? Nothing.
No, definitely not. So, I mean, Franklin, for all his shortcomings, he kind of set the bar really high for what this next hire needs to be for Penn State. And it's been a colossal mess, I would say.
Yep.
Like, are we in one of the craziest eras of college football right now, where you have the Lane Kiffin saga that went on for weeks, and then you have this whole ordeal with Penn State swinging and missing on so many different guys that they've been interested in.
So Joe Papilano is a sports and business reporter, hosts the Joe Papilano Show. He had what might be one of my favorite tweets ever when it comes to college football. The other day, he said Penn State fired James Franklin because it believed national championships were the standard, only to be turned down by the coach at BYU because the CEO of Crumble Cookies outbid Penn State's boosters. Now, if you knew nothing about college sports, you'd say that sentence makes no sense. But for those of us ingrained in this wild, stupid, entertaining sport, it makes perfect sense. And if that's not the perfect encapsulation of what college football is, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. We are just living in a bizarro world right now where just the most insane things are happening. It's just wild to think about everything going on right now in this wonderfully crazy, beautiful sport that we have.
Again, I call it stupid, but I love it so much.
Yes.
I can't fathom not following it as closely as I do. Like, NFL, sure, there can be some drama. There can be some wacky things that happen with free agency and drafts and all that kind of stuff. Nothing compares to the CEO of Crumble Cookies outbidding a major institution for a head coach.
Yeah, it's insane.
I didn't even know to send him cookies.
I didn't even know Crumble had that much money, but I guess
I didn't know Crumble was tied to BYU until the other day.
I guess they're doing pretty well.
Well, I mean, they got stores everywhere. Like they're a successful business. I didn't know they had the ties to BYU.
Though, yeah.
But now, here's the thing though. Now I'll never forget it. Every time I go to Crumble, I'm gonna think, BYU.
I'm supporting BYU.
Yeah. These are the people that kept Kalani Sitake, who, by the way, has an opportunity to play his team into the playoff this weekend by beating Texas Tech.
Yeah,
there's a reason why Penn State was considering him, because he's done a really good job.
Exactly.
But, And again, he wasn't going to be their first option anyway. That just wouldn't have, it just didn't seem like that was going to fit, right? That just would have been like a weird combination.
But that's where Penn State's at right now, where they're going to have to go after weird combinations that maybe wouldn't have fit because, again, this was not their first, their second, their third. We're talking about probably their fifth or sixth option at this point.
Yeah, regardless, it's been intriguing to watch. And I want to ask a question on the other side. Why do we enjoy watching these kind of things happen when it's not your school, at least? We'll examine that on the other side as we wrap up the hour. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Schooling and Heating. It's our head and Jack Feltry on your Thursday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Garnet Trust Hour presented by Krantz Schooling Heating. Tyler Head along with you. Jack Veltri had to bounce a few minutes early as he's going to get over to Dutch Fork High School for the commitment of Julian Walker. Now, I can't guarantee that's going to be a commitment to South Carolina. We certainly hope so, but an announcement nonetheless coming up in right about an hour. It's scheduled for 11:45. Jack will have all the coverage on Gamecock Central, and as we get into the next hour, we'll certainly talk about that if and when it does happen or what decision he does ultimately decide to make. And I was scrolling back through some tweets about Julian Walker, as I've been with all these guys, him, Landon Duckworth, all that kind of stuff, continually refreshing the Twitter timeline to see if anything else has come out. And I came across the video of him that Jack shot when he visited South Carolina for one of their games early on in the year. That may have been the South Carolina State game or something like that. But my God, what a monster of a man or kid. I mean, God, he's not even, is he 18? I don't know.
I don't know.
17 or 18
even if
years
he
old,
is,
but he's a monster.
You know, it's funny, man. I can't remember exactly when this was. Was it the 2024 season? What, you know, it was at least 2024 or before. And I remember the first time we were at maybe one of like the open practices, or maybe we were at a summer camp, and you see this kid or this man walking around, and you're like, all right, is this like a transfer? Like, is this somebody visiting? Like, who is this? And then you find out, oh, that's Jamil Walker's kid. That's Julian. You know, he's a high school kid playing at Dutch Fork, and you're like, he looks like he's already on the team.
Yeah.
You know, and so he's been around the program for so long. Obviously, he began, as time went on, getting more and more recruiting interest. He got a bunch of high-level offers. And he went from kind of like, okay, here's Julian Walker, to becoming this high-level Division I Power 4 prospect. And obviously, he was always going to be a guy that I think South Carolina, you know, wanted to bring into the program. And so eventually, you know, it got to a point where, okay, it's time to take visits. It's time to actually go through the recruiting process. And this summer, the Michigan stuff, it came on quickly. You know, took the visit there, ended up committing very shortly after that. But you always got the sense of like it was kind of a surprise commitment, just because of, like, he goes to Dutch Fork, yes, a local school, but he's not a state of South Carolina native, always grown up here, because the family's moved around, but his dad is on staff. And so you always got the sense of like, all right, this is probably going to be a guy to watch, not just in the early stages, but even after he committed to Michigan. So
Right.
Michigan obviously tried to keep him. South Carolina's been working on the flip for a while. North Carolina, which is, we could spend a lot of time on them. They've been fascinating with their kind of strategy during the recruiting cycle. They're taking a huge high school class. They're trying to make a late play. So we'll see where this goes. I do think, Tyler, that, you know, Walker needed some more time after he just got back from Michigan on Monday. Needed some more time. Obviously, there's today and tomorrow left during the early signing period, but it appears he's ready. I haven't gotten a final word. We'll be tracking it, but I do think South Carolina has had a good shot to pull off this flip.
Again, Jack's on his way over there, and we'll keep you updated on that when that announcement does come out within about the next hour. Jack and I were talking about the Penn State situation a moment ago, and the mess it is trying to find the replacement for James Franklin. And I was going to pose a question to him, but I'll pose it to you now. Why do we enjoy watching these things happen when these coaching hire or coaching searches just go wrong, like Tennessee back in 2017 with the Schiano thing that ended up with Jeremy Pruitt, what we thought was happening with LSU before they ultimately decided to land Lane Kiffin. Obviously, you don't want it to happen when it's your program, but why do we enjoy watching other programs suffer so much when it comes to things like this?
I don't know. You know, sometimes, like, if it's a rival,
sure,
you're like, yes.
Like, we have nothing for or against Penn State here necessarily.
I think there's just some intrigue to it. You know, maybe if things aren't going well for you, you feel like kindred spirits in some way. But, yeah, I mean, this thing's fascinating because, I don't know, I texted some of my colleagues in the media a few days ago. I'm like, is this Penn State search not like the weirdest thing you've ever seen? We don't even know who's in the mix.
Right. We
kept hearing about, you know, some people were putting out stuff about a mystery candidate. That probably was Kalani Sitake.
Sure.
And it became very public that was their top target. He spurns them, so now it's like, who are you going to hire? You got the stuff about the boosters wanting Terry Smith, so it's like, okay, you're going to – I mean, it worked out at Clemson. You fired the head coach, promoted an interim. It worked out quite well, you know, so maybe it would. But I don't think that's what they had in mind when they made that move. They made the move of like, things aren't good this season. They've generally been pretty good. We're going to go take it to the next level. And I think for a lot of the fans, and certainly for Pat Kraft, the AD, he's probably like not envisioning that. And James Franklin taking a bunch of their class. They've got like the 150th rated class right now because they got like, I don't know.
Like 3 people yesterday that signed. They're behind.
Few good players, but
they're behind FCS schools.
Yes.
Actually in recruiting.
Well, that's what happens when you have like 3 guys.
Yeah.
So, fascinating. And I'm going to be honest. What is the deal with the crumble cookie thing? That's Pat Kraft's favorite cookie or something?
So, and I didn't know this until the other day because I wasn't here yesterday. I had to do some stuff in Georgia. So when I left here on Tuesday, I assumed Kalani Sitake was going to become the next Penn State head coach because all the speculation and reporting was it was heading in that direction. By the time I got to my parents' house at 6 o'clock, that was off the table because apparently the CEO of Crumble Cookies is a BYU alum and a big donor, and he cut a nice check to ensure he stuck around. And I guess to continue to gloat, Crumble Cookies were sent to the Penn State athletic facility in the hours after that to help dig the needle in a little bit further, I guess.
That was amazing.
Pat Kraft may be able to join some Crumble Cookies while he's in the unemployment line here soon.
Yeah, I mean that's it's kind of Hail Mary time for them. Now maybe they promote Terry Smith. Maybe they do end up pulling a good coach. There's still, Tyler, behind the scenes, a few thoughts of like after conference championship weekend, there may still be some surprising coaching moves. We'll see, but man, they got to find somebody.
Speaking of coaching moves, we'll get into the latest of what happened with South Carolina's coaching staff earlier on this morning as we dive into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday here on the game.
All right, y'all, if you're looking for a local, reliable, and a family-owned company right here in the Midlands to help you with any of your home or business's HVAC needs, you know who we're going to tell you about. It's our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating. Krantz, cooling with a K, krantzcooling.com. That's where you can go to learn more about what they can do for you. And I'm telling you about them because I trust them to come out to my home. So is Wes. They've been out to both of our homes helping us out, whether it's new installations, repairs, maintenance. They've done all of that for me and for Wes. Let them do the same for you. krantzcooling.com or 803-672-3224. Special offer of 0% APR for 60 months on qualifying equipment. You can check out their Krantz Club, which is a maintenance plan that helps you stay on top of any repairs and maintenance that you may need. You can text them a question directly from their website. Since 1983, they've been serving families and businesses around the Midlands. That's Krantz Cooling, coolingwithak.com.
All right, 11 o'clock on your Thursday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Chris along with you here. Day 2 of the early signing period. Sounds like you guys had a good time out at Firehouse Subs yesterday. I do hate that I missed that, but glad Terry kept you guys on track at least, hopefully.
Maybe. And, we were running back and forth, making phone calls and all sorts of stuff. So I don't know what Terry said. Hopefully he kept it, radio friendly.
I haven't gotten any complaints from the FCC, so.
No complaints yet.
No complaints.
And we had, Tyler, an absolute, we always have the smorgasbord of subs.
Yeah.
I meant to I was about to take a picture and got a phone call. We had 2 tables together.
Oh.
And there wasn't like a square inch that was left. I mean, there were so many subs.
Yeah. The wife's out of town this weekend, so I get to settle in and just watch football all day on Saturday, and I got to figure out what I'm going to eat. So I may have to get my Firehouse Subs fix Saturday since I didn't get it yesterday.
Let me tell you, so my oldest daughter, I got to text this to Larry Chandler, owner and operator of all the Midlands Firehouse Subs. I'm going to send this to him. I didn't get a chance to this morning, but my daughter has been clamoring lately for Firehouse Subs.
Yeah.
And so I brought back, a big box with a few of them. When she found out about it, and she literally requested a piece of the brisket add bacon, like one of the fourths. She ate that for breakfast this morning.
Nice.
I was like, that's my daughter,
That's what's up.
Yeah. So she enjoyed that for breakfast, which is outstanding.
Very cool. Hey, nothing goes to waste.
No, not at all.
Not a good
Has
Firehouse
bacon
Sub.
on it. That's a breakfast
That's
food.
right. That's the Wes Mitchell special. We got a lot to get to. Yes, there are staff changes being made at South Carolina, which we'll get to coming up later on the hour. But as we're still in, and yes, yesterday is recognized as early signing day, but it's really the opening of the early signing window, which lasts for a couple days. So commitments can be made, signings can be made today as well. And one thing that we've been following a lot, and I wasn't here yesterday, but I was feverishly refreshing my timeline all day long about Landon Duckworth. What's he going to do? Is he going to go to Carolina? Is he going to go to LSU? What's the deal here? And for the most part, the back half of yesterday, there were no new updates. But as of about 10 minutes ago, Hayes Fawcett of Rivals is reporting, and you have confirmation on this as well. It does seem like he's leaning back towards South Carolina with an announcement set for later on today at 2 p.m. Central Time, because he is in Alabama, where he'll officially announce and sign then.
Yes, that is the current thought. And
which can change. But right now, that's where
I
things
get
are
pen
at.
to paper. Yeah, and Duckworth's recruitment has been fascinating for sure. To take it all the way back, made a very early commitment to South Carolina, backed off of that pledge, eventually recommitted, and then LSU, under 2 different staffs, mind you, has made some runs at him. And so when this came out yesterday, and look, I get it, y'all. Like, the Gamecock fan base is at a point where it's kind of, let's get some wins,
Something.
You're right, and I don't even mean on the field wins. Yes, you hope for that next season, but let's get some off-season wins, because this is a critical, as we've talked about, pivotal off-season. So some of that's going to be with the coaching staff, and we'll dive more into that as there's more news there this morning, more movement there. But, hey, let's get some recruiting wins. So I understand the thought that all these bad things are happening, and so when you hear, hey, Landon Duckworth's not signing today, maybe, or it's up in the air as to whether or not he'll sign. When you see some predictions come out, a prediction come out for LSU, it's natural. Look, I get it. Living the fan experience of, well, he's gone. That's it. But right, in the midst of all that happening, we started, of course, digging into it. What's actually going on here? Is this prediction a little bit more along the lines of, hey, it's kind of trending that way? Is it accurate? Is it this thing's completely over? Because sometimes you see predictions come out, and frankly, that means it's done.
Sure.
It's a done deal. And so we tried to dig around on it, and very quickly we learned yesterday, hey, it's more of an up in the air. It's more of a let's see kind of thing. And I think, frankly, that Duckworth and his family just needed a little bit more time to sort through things. We're in an interesting era where you've got, quite frankly, you've got rev share contracts, you've got NIL-related matters, when you're looking to go for a school, even if you've been committed to that school for months.
Right.
And so I think they needed a little bit more time to sit down as a family and just kind of make sure. And so, look, but were there some indications that there was some worry, there was some concern? Yeah, I mean, those are very valid. But it also was not a situation where it was completely done. And I think you saw, Steve Wiltfong from On 3 does a great job, put out that prediction and then came back later and said, hey, LSU, he still painted it as LSU trending, but South Carolina's still battling here. I don't think South Carolina was ever a deal where like he had decided to go to LSU. I have not heard that. I haven't heard anything that makes me believe that. I think it was more LSU trying to wedge in there, create some doubt, and just the family needing more time. So we'll see. I mean, that is a pretty strong indication that he's now, because Landon, I don't think he spoke yesterday.
Right.
I think he kept things quiet. He's now publicly said, hey, South Carolina is where I'm signing. I'm signing it. It'll be 3 p.m. Eastern. Of course, we'll continue tracking it up until then, but looks like they're in position to get that win and keep him in the class.
Now, when you talk about what you're hearing, who you're talking to, in a day like yesterday and into today, what are those like resources? Who are the type of people that you're getting this information from in terms of what way he may end up going?
Ooh, well, we can't. I can't dive fully into sourcing, but
you can't tell me. You don't have to tell me specific names.
Yeah, you're trying to find people who can you talk to the kid himself? Can you talk to somebody from the family? Can you talk to somebody who's been in communication with the family? People who just generally know the deal in these situations, and frankly, that can be tough. And Tyler, honestly, I mean, this isn't a new. This isn't anything new in 2025. This is the way it's been for a while. You're trying to find out what's the reality, because sometimes, and this, to be clear, this didn't happen with Landon, but as a general sense, sometimes kids, their families, maybe their agents, they're telling different people different things. And so you're trying to sort out what is the reality of the situation. Things can also change extremely quickly. We've seen that a bunch. We saw that with, the Carson Baker recruitment. We reported yesterday, Carson Baker, who favored a bunch of different schools during the recruiting process, the 4-star back from Georgia, favored a lot of different schools, including South Carolina. On Sunday, after he wrapped his official visit, it looked very much like he's probably going to South Carolina. Well, then you get to Monday, Tuesday, and you're hearing, well, Florida, where he was committed and decommitted from, they're still in it with a new coaching staff. They're making a big push. You're hearing North Carolina's making a big push. Then yesterday morning on signing day, I get a text. Actually, Carson Baker's going to sign with Texas A&M. And you're going, what? They're not even in it.
Yep.
But they came in late Tuesday night. We knew Baker was going to sign Thursday, and now he's publicly committed to them. So these things can change very, very quickly based on, the situation, and that can make it tough sometimes to get a handle on.
I said this to Jack earlier. I respect the heck out of what you guys do. You earn your money. I just get to sit here in one place and talk about these things. You guys actually have to go around, travel, go to camps, and all these kind of things. And I don't envy the jobs you guys have to do and putting all this together for days like yesterday and today.
It's difficult sometimes, but it's fun. I mean, I'm blessed to be able to get to do it, and it frankly it is fun. Like covering coaching searches, covering recruiting. Like, are there some frustrations? I mean, yeah, absolutely sometimes. But it's a lot of fun sometimes, a lot of the time.
Now, do you have a preference of when signing day is now compared to when it used to just only be in February?
There are parts I like and there are parts I don't like. I'll admit that when the signing day was only in February before they added the new signing period, that was fun because, at that time, there was no portal. It was just, who are you signing? And it was it actually was a signing period even then.
Yeah.
It was the start of the signing period.
But then, it was
everybody.
The first day was when most people signed.
Probably 99%. Every now and then, like, it was a big deal if you had a kid that didn't sign, like Jadeveon Clowney signed on February 14th. It was his birthday, Valentine's Day. That was like an outlier. That didn't happen very often. So people would literally take off work. I'm getting up on signing day in February at 5 a.m. and you're not going to sleep until, who knows when that night.
Sure.
And it was all in one day. And so you spread it out a little bit. I did like that one day because it was the day. Now you've got 2 signing periods. You got the portal. Covering the portal's fun too. Fans, even if they say they don't like the portal, my numbers that we see on how much y'all read, you like reading about the portal, that's for sure.
You don't like the portal until you land somebody really good out
That's
of
right.
it.
Or you don't like it if you lose somebody. You
That's
say
right.
you don't like it, but people read it a lot, and so now you've got basically kind of 3 different periods, and the February one is the most unimportant. You know, and you used to have 4. You had the spring signing, you had the spring portal too, and that's gone. So now you've just got the 3, and the February signing day has almost completely lost its luster. Really,
I think it was this year where we didn't. I don't know if we even acknowledged National Signing Day when it happened, because it's like, well, Carolina's entire class is in the boat already.
Yeah, a couple. I mean, I remember a couple signing day when Nick Harbor signed. Like he signed in the February period, and it was basically just Nick Harbor Day. Like he was the guy.
And we were actually pleasantly shocked when that announcement happened, because it seemed like at the 11th hour he was going to Oregon, and then something changed.
He was going to Oregon at like 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah,
and then a few hours later he's going to South Carolina. So you see that too. It's not for a lot of these guys. It's not over till it's over.
Yeah,
so.
That's the fun part of early signing day, National Signing Day, whatever you want to call it. I did reference this earlier. There have been some staff moves further being made in the last handful of hours on South Carolina's coaching staff. We'll dive into what that is coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along. Tyler and Chris on your Thursday on the game. right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head and Chris Clark along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Again, a lot of things happening, a lot of things fluid. We'll get to news as it's breaking over the course of the hour. Again, the Julian Walker announcement set to come up at about 11:45. Jack Belcher on the scene for that, and we'll get you that announcement as soon as it happens over there at Dutch Fork High School. But the news that we led off the morning with, that quite literally happened minutes before Jack walked in here, was a coaching staff change being made. Of course, Beamer, for the first time in his tenure, made in-season moves by letting go of Lonnie Teasley and eventually Mike Shule at the offensive line and offensive coordinator spots, respectively. We figured there was going to be an opportunity to make some moves once the season had officially ended, and earlier on this morning they did ultimately dismiss Marquell Blackwell, who had been the running backs coach for the past 2 years.
Yeah, now 2 different coaching dismissals for Shane Beamer at the running backs position, which, look, is something he's talked about a lot throughout his tenure. You can identify some themes, and he talked about these a lot when it comes to the offensive coordinator role and the offensive line role. Tackles for loss, sacks, negative plays. Those are things that even when South Carolina's had some spurts of success since he's been here, those are areas that have to improve. They've been themes, frankly, throughout, from 2021 onward, and those are themes that he's looking to, eliminate going forward to take the offense to a level where it can be more consistently productive. But you also look, Tyler, at the run game, and what were the themes there? Well, 2021, 22, 23, the running game is not where it needed to be, and so he deemed after the 2023 season that a change needed to be made there. It was his first dismissal in general of a coach when he let Montario Hardesty go. He brings in Marquell Blackwell, who was most recently at Texas A&M. Last year, pretty good picture for the South Carolina football program. That was the one year where they were most consistent running the football, and some of that was they were better blocking in the run game up front, but you also had the emergence of Lenora Sellers running the football. And you had a guy named Rocket Sanders, who was a proven, former 1,000-yard back in the SEC, ran for 1,400 yards in 2022 for Arkansas. Those things helped, right? But this year, of course, offensively, not much of anything was pretty, and certainly the run game included there. You also, 2 other things I think you bake into this. High school recruiting at the running back position has been an issue for South Carolina. They've been pretty reliant on the transfer portal. That obviously worked out tremendously with Rocket Sanders. But South Carolina hasn't brought in a transfer portal, they haven't brought in a high school back in the 2025 class. And they brought in multiple transfers between 2024, 2025. And Shane Beamer mentioned yesterday, hey, I don't think we're going to sign a high school running back in this class either. So did the recruiting part of it weigh into this? I tend to think so. Regardless of whether or not South Carolina signed a high school back in this class, I do think they would have had to go portal. But I think Shane Beamer is looking at the overall production, maybe the running back, rotation and how those backs were deployed, as well as the overall recruiting picture in making this decision. We also know, Tyler, that Beamer's been pretty upfront that the new offensive coordinator is going to have a say in the offensive staff.
Yep.
So now you look at that, you would presume that a new OC is going to have heavy input into, hey, I've got an offensive line coach that I'd like to bring. Well, now you look at it, there's even more of a blank slate now to if there's a connection that OC may have. He may have some input, or he will have some input into that new hire because the way has kind of been cleared here.
Well, and, going back, and Jack and I were talking about this earlier, like the LSU game where Matthew Fuller ripped off the long touchdown run, being the only touchdown South Carolina would score, and then he didn't touch the ball basically for about 2 quarters after that. And Beamer said to some effect at some point during halftime, he made it clear he wanted Fuller to get the ball more, ride the hot hand, that kind of stuff, which was a consistent issue we saw throughout the year. If somebody like a Jordan Howell or a Fuller will get some touches early in the game and not see the ball until the 4th quarter and those kind of things. So it didn't seem like there was a frustration building with not only the play calling from Mike Shule, but also the rotations of who was on the field at what time and how those guys are utilized, which on game day does go back to somebody like Marquell Blackwell in terms of what personnel is on the field at what time. So not, I guess, surprising that this decision was made. And you're right, the past 2 cycles, including this one, you're not going to have a high school running back. You're losing your top two running backs experience-wise, and Rasul Faison and Oscar Attaway being out of eligibility, and you're, like you said, basically forced to go out there and get some guys in the portal. And, again, we saw a good example of that a year ago where Rocket Sanders came in, and when he was healthy, he was exactly what you thought Rocket Sanders was going to be. Had a very good season, is now on and playing the NFL. And Rasul Faison, not so much. He had some moments, had some decent games, had some big runs, but it wasn't the consistency you thought of a guy that had run for 1,000 yards at a place like Utah State. So now you're once again in a situation where you have to go out there and get somebody that's going to potentially be your bell cow back coming up next year. And as we know, that's not a guarantee. I mean, a couple years ago, we knew they needed somebody in the spring cycle after you'd already gotten Mario Anderson from Newberry in the December window, I guess, and nobody came. I know they were talking to some guys, but nobody ended up coming in that spring window, and you had to work with what you had, ultimately making to carry on Joyner running back. So just because you want something in the portal doesn't mean you're going to get it. And again, you could be putting yourself in a precarious spot when it comes to the running back position next year, depending on who you hire, what you can get in the portal. And as we talked about with OC, maybe you hire somebody and they have a running back they've been working with that's willing to come with them.
Yep.
That wants to play at South Carolina, wants to play in the SEC, whatever it may be. So it's an impossible question to answer right now. But
Yes.
again, running back has been a consistent issue more often than not in the 5 years that Beamer's been here.
Yeah, running back, run game. You're already short on numbers regardless, and Beamer talked about this at his signing day presser yesterday. You got 3 scholarship backs. So he used the word impossible, which is right. You cannot go into a season with 3 transfer portal back, or not 3 scholarship backs. So, what are you going to do to bolster that? You're looking at this thing now, Tyler. Do you need 2 backs from the transfer portal? You might very well, because if you're not signing somebody from the high school ranks, maybe a surprise pops up in February, from the high school ranks, if there's somebody unsigned out there that makes sense. But you might need, and the guys that are on the roster, they've shown some good things, particularly, Fuller and Howell. That's the other thing. I mean, guys can leave too.
Yeah.
It's not 100%. I'm not saying either of those guys would leave, but the portal is going to open in January. We're seeing activity there. We've already seen some guys, I think 3 different players, 2 in the past couple of days, announce that they're going in the portal. You got to build that in too. You could very quickly get in a spot where you need a lot of acquisitions. So Fuller and Howell, you got Isaiah Agustave from Colorado who transferred in, didn't play a huge role this year. They're on the roster. All those guys have at least played some, but you don't get the sense right now that, okay, this is our guy going into next year. It could be one of those guys, but at a minimum, you're going to need to add some depth. But I really do think if South Carolina can look to the portal to find somebody who, okay, this is a Rocket Sanders type guy, like he's a proven performer, that makes a lot of sense. But you definitely got to add numbers there.
Well, and I don't know how close South Carolina was with Carson Baker when it came down to the very end. Again, we kind of talked about the back and forth there, and he's obviously ultimately signed with Texas A&M. Is that something that kind of could have been the final straw? Like, hey, maybe if we land this guy, we keep this going, because again, Marco Blackwell was his primary recruiter when that kind of went off the rails, and obviously he's now going to the Aggies. Maybe that was like, all right, well, we're not even going to land a back in this class for the second year in a row. Okay, it's time to make a change, and hopefully we can find somebody better that comes in and can do what we need to do, not only from a recruiting standpoint, because that is important, but also the development standpoint. These guys that you do have in here, you do have them for multiple years. How do you get them to that level to eventually be your number 1 running back? Because we have not really seen that either. And again, this isn't just a Markel Blackwell thing. This goes back to Montario Hardesty as well from the prior running backs coach. You just haven't had that development at the position because you have had to go out there and rely on portal ads more often than not.
Yeah, and it's not, again, it's not just one thing. The offensive line struggles certainly contributed to the run game struggles this year. You can look at, okay, was it coaching? Is it the offensive line not giving it enough room? Is it the running back rotation? Is it the scheme? Like, the answer, guys, is probably some of all those things, in different spots. It is, it's fascinating to look back at Faison's last college football season. Like, there were times where you're like, man, that's a really good run. And there are other times where you're like, what's going on out here? And so just that inconsistency, that you got to be able to run the football to win in this league when you play South Carolina's schedule, and they haven't been able to do it well enough. The one season that they did it, 2024, it's not, like magic. They win a bunch of games, right? You've got to be able to run the football. And so it looks like the plans and an all fronts attack where you get a new scheme, you're getting a new coach, you get a new offensive line coach. Like, let's attack this thing. And so we don't know who any of those guys, as we sit here on Thursday at 11:27 a.m., we don't know who any of those guys are going to be, but you have an opportunity to go try to fix it with those coaching moves, and then you're going to have an opportunity to try to fix it from a personnel standpoint.
Again, that's the news of the morning so far. Markel Blackwell being relieved of his duties as running backs coach, and that's another hire that Shane Beaver is going to be making here soon in terms of getting things ready for 2026. We'll keep you updated on everything going on with early signing day as it continues on. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyree, Chris Clark along with you here on your Thursday. Busy night, by the way. Tonight you got women's basketball in action taking on a ranked Louisville team. That game at 7 o'clock. Pregame coverage starting at 6:30 can be heard on our sister station B106.7. I won't make a 6-7 joke. You can do that yourself if you want to. And then tonight at 7 here on the game, we got Thursday Night Football with Cowboys and Lions kickoff about 8:20, as those are two teams kind of going in different directions there. The months of December and January are the two most fluid when it comes to college football, especially with early signing period, transfer portal, and all those kind of things. We've spent the majority of the morning talking about what's happening from a signing day standpoint. Again, seems like Landon Duckworth is training towards signing with Carolina. That announcement coming up later on this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Julian Walker set to announce here in about 10 minutes. Jack Veltri on the scene at Dutch Fork for that, and we'll get you that update as soon as we possibly can in terms of what he's going to do. Obviously, Carson Baker's already committed to Texas A&M a little bit early on this morning. Those are the three names that Carolina was keeping their eyes on going into today. But also, we get portal news as well, as the portal does not officially open until January 2nd, but you can make your intentions known that you're going to be entering the portal. So, schools can start talking to you. Let's not pretend like that doesn't happen. And yesterday we learned Nick Sharp, of course, one of the offensive linemen that started a handful of games for South Carolina this year, is going to enter the portal. And within the last hour, we also learned that Xavier Hardy, who was a backup defensive lineman that came in from the JUCO ranks a year ago, also going to be entering the portal now as well.
That's, unless I'm missing somebody, which is possible because my brain capacity is diminishing rapidly with everything going on. Third guy. So Michael Smith a while back, that was an in-season one where he, is no longer part of the team. So you presume he will be entering the transfer portal when it opens. We also have Nick Sharp from yesterday, who ended up starting some games late in the season for South Carolina at offensive guard. Now you've got Hardy. Hardy's one, Tyler, where, we looked at this guy out of high school, a lot of athleticism, size, very intriguing prospect, pretty highly rated prospect.
Yep.
Knew he would have to go the JUCO route, did that. South Carolina gets him back. It actually became a legitimate recruitment because he ended up picking more SEC offers up once he got to junior college at East Mississippi. But the Gamecocks get him in, bring him in this offseason. And remember all the turnover from last year in losing, Tonka Hemingway, TJ Sanders, Boogie Huntley, DeAndre Jules. You knew that Nick Barrett, Monkel Goodwine would have to take a step forward, but you knew there'd be some other guys from the portal. And one of the questions was, can Xavier Hardy come in year one and look like he's ready? And for whatever reason or reasons, that didn't end up happening. He only ended up playing in one game, which is against Coastal late in the year. Didn't end up making an impact that you would have hoped. And so it makes sense, right? Whatever the reasons are, whether he wants to go play more, whether the staff feels like, I haven't really gathered that quite yet.
Yeah.
Didn't have the impact. Not that he was a guy that you were counting on to, come in and start, but it certainly would have been a bonus if he could have come in and been ready to play, and that didn't happen. So, I think, look, we spent last segment talking about running back. I just mentioned Nick Sharp. The three positions that South Carolina, that Shane Beamer talked about yesterday, were going to be portal priorities. He talked about offensive line, defensive tackle, and he said it like 3 times in a row, to drive the point home. But also after he talked about those positions, he mentioned running back. So we spent a lot of the show talking about those 3 positions. Defensive tackle is certainly going to be one where now you're losing, once again, 2 senior starters in Barrett and Goodwine. So, as part of that, you need some of the guys you brought in, this past cycle, a Troy Pikes, a Devontae Miles, to continue to come along. Yes. Can a freshman play a role? Maybe. You signed a couple yesterday, Noah Clark, Aiden Harris.
Yep.
But no doubt you're going to need some portal guys to come in and not just be bodies, but be ready to play.
Well, and, last year you had such a unique and rare circumstance where you had so many experienced guys all together in one room, and they all stayed relatively healthy throughout the entire year, and that was a big catalyst for why that defense was so successful a year ago. Now, getting yourself back to that point of having all that experience and all those guys that can gel together is certainly something that's not necessarily guaranteed. But, yeah, the trenches and running back are going to be the 3 most important spots it seems like for South Carolina to address, coming up this offseason. And again, we'll see also, where those guys that you just mentioned and that came in with this year's cycle are going to be as far as their development, but the other guys they have on the roster that, came in as freshmen from a season ago with Ingram and Williams, what kind of progress are they making? Are they guys that can factor in year number 2? I believe they got a handful of snaps this year as well. Again, just kind of getting their feet wet, if nothing else. But can they be in position to take a step forward and be significant contributors on the defensive line next year?
What I should have mentioned, when I mentioned Pikes and Miles, Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy has another year of eligibility. And
I think we say by far he was probably maybe your best transfer portal ad this year when he stayed healthy, because he got banged up a lot, but when he was on the field, he made an impact.
Yeah, didn't play as many snaps as maybe you would have anticipated later in the season, and I think could have been, Tyler, that some of those nagging injuries played a part, but he looked like a dude. At times there were games where you went, man, like that was one of the better guys on the field for either team, and so he's going to be a big part of it. Miles and Pikes, and you always have to have the caveat if these guys are on the roster. We live it. So yes, but Christian Ingram. What's the plan there? Caleb Williams is the one out of the younger guys that I'm really intrigued by. There's only right now, before these other guys from the 2026 class, there's only 2 freshmen on this roster. Caleb Williams was a guy that the staff was getting ready to play. Like they were getting him. He had an injury that kept him out during the spring, got healthier. They were getting him ready to play, and then boom, in practice, has a leg break. And Shane Beamer talked about that publicly. And so that was a situation where you could have gotten him some late season run, and that would have helped him get more ready. Now he's in the midst of a recovery. But, once again, they're going to be going into a season with a lot of questions there. And quite frankly, the transfer portal is going to have to be a big part of that, and retaining some of these pieces of your roster that did play this year will be another part.
As we look at these 3 guys, Nick Sharp, I guess from an on-field contribution standpoint, it's the most significant. He's somebody that did come in out of the portal as well, but he played the most out of these 3 guys. But a season ago, we gave Beamer a lot of credit because you didn't really lose anybody of significance in terms of on-field production. Because, look, everybody loses guys to the portal. You're not going to retain everybody in your roster. There are guys they're going to want to go play somewhere else, or they don't like where they're at on the depth chart or whatever it may be, and that's just a part of college football now. But what's the phrase that Wes uses? The healthy transfers.
Yes,
you want healthy transfers. Like, okay, it makes sense. That guy's third on the depth chart. It's not going to play, so he's going to go somewhere else. It's losing high-level contributors. And again, I'm not putting this out there that would happen, but if you lose Dylan Stewart, that's a big deal, right? Because that is one of your best players and the anchor of your defense. If you lose him, you got a problem. But if you can hang on to guys like that, guys that had the majority of snaps, put in most of your stats this year, that's the positives of the transfer portal, and hanging on to those guys while supplementing what you can add around them.
Well, and we talked about running back earlier. That's another one where very quickly, again, not saying that we've heard either of these are going to happen, but what if one of those other backs leaves?
Yeah.
Now you've gone from 3 scholarship guys to 2 or 1 or whatever it may be. It's very important to, even if you don't have a clear cut, all right, this is our our best player. This is a Dylan Stewart. This is a Lenora Sellers. You still you have to balance having depth and numbers at frankly positions where if guys aren't the guy, they're well within their right to go somewhere else. You have to balance trying to build depth with finding guys out of the portal who can bolster that depth or even become your starter. And in one way, you can say, on one hand, you can say, well, it's easier to get guys because you've got the portal.
Sure.
On the other hand, it's harder to build that depth because you have the portal.
Looking at the scholarship breakdown now on Gamecock Central, Edge was the most senior-laden room on this team. Now, again, with COVID years and injuries and all that kind of stuff, I don't know what factors in, but we're losing Brian Thomas Jr., losing JT Gear, Wilson and Clowney, because Wilson got hurt, so he didn't play this year.
They're going to apply for an extra year for Wilson. They feel like they can get it. And then Clowney's done.
Clowney's done. Okay, so you're at least losing 3 guys that were marked as seniors in that room. So that's another area you're probably going to ideally try and get maybe 100%. A couple of guys out of in the portal too.
100%. You've got the Dylan Stewart question. Like, I think there's some positive indicate, but everybody in the country would love to have Dylan Stewart.
Sure.
I'm sure. So
there's a lot of people asking for him right now.
Got Des Umeozulu, got Jalen Brown, who didn't get to play this year. That was a big transfer portal get. You've got some young guys. Had 3 guys that were freshmen this year. But yeah, I certainly expect the portal is going to be a part of that strategy for that room too.
We'll keep you updated as those things do indeed happen. We'll come back, wrap up the hour, see if we'll get any Julian Walker news before we let the show wrap up here as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, rolls along on your Thursday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Chris along with you here, wrapping up the hour on your second day of the early signing window. We'll get into some more stuff on that here in just a second, but appreciate all of you that have been waiting on the live stream, as well as the Firehouse Subs text line and the AAA Heat and Air phone lines. We are aware of what's kind of been going on with the radio signal this morning, so appreciate you guys letting us know about that. We are working to get that fixed and get everything back and running the way that it has been, but we're still rolling on live stream and our app as well. And again, we're looking to get that signal back up and rolling properly here very, very soon. So again, appreciate you guys for helping keep us aware of that to make sure that we're good and ready to go there. I am feverishly refreshing my Twitter feed as Julian Walker, of course, over at Dutch Fork High School, is set to make his announcement. Jack Veltri bolted out of here about an hour to go to get over there and see what the announcement's going to be, and per some pictures of folks on the scene covering there are indeed just two hats on the table. Got a Michigan hat. You got a South Carolina hat. Both hats have stickers on them. The hat test is always which one looks like it's been the most worn. I'd say they look about even, so I don't think we can go anything off of that, but obviously that'd be a big get for South Carolina. His dad, obviously part of the strength staff here, and you're hoping that connection can help put South Carolina over the hump there when it comes to signing Julian Walker. So I'm going to keep refreshing things here to see if that announcement does end up coming in here before we wrap up the hour. Of course, whenever you have these kind of recruiting announcements, it's not always exactly, because the announcement was set for 11:45, but coach gets up there, the principal gets up there, talk about the kid and how great they are and what they do for the school and the community and all those kind of things. And then eventually the kid gets up there and thanks everybody before putting on a hat or revealing a T-shirt or pulling out a prop or something along those lines. So we'll keep you updated as I continue to just refresh my Twitter feed, quite frankly, in terms of what you're ultimately going to get with the Julian Walker announcement. While we wait on that, let's get into a little bit more of what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday, where South Carolina's class a little bit smaller this time around, with, at the time, 14 total commits when he was talking yesterday, and he talked about focusing on quality over quantity.
Everybody looks at signing classes and the number of guys that you sign. This is not a huge class, but if you talk about quality over quantity, we absolutely hit the mark on that. Everybody's got their different rankings, but I think I said this Saturday after the game in regards to average star rating. This is a top 10 class in the nation, and we're not done yet. As we finish up, these guys are big-time people. As I said, we had certainly a tough year on the field, but most games when I came in the locker room or I got done in the press conference with you guys after the game, usually when I pulled out my phone, the first text messages I had after the game were from these guys because they believe in what we're doing. Their families, I usually would hear from their moms and dads as well, and they believe in what we're doing and they know how close we are and they want to be a part of this without a doubt. So, 9 of these guys will be here with us in January when we start spring practice. Could be, could be more as we go down the list, but that's the ones that we're able to talk about right now.
And again, yesterday that was in reference to the fact that South Carolina's class was a little bit smaller than what some of the other ones are. When you look at the teams that are on the top of the recruiting rankings, obviously they have classes of 30 and 34 and stuff like that. South Carolina's not quite going to have those numbers, though, as I believe Chris Clark will jump back in here with me, or I'll wait a second. That's okay. I believe we do indeed have some good news in reference to Julian Walker, as he has officially flipped his commitment from the University of Michigan to South Carolina. He will join the screen class, which I guess now bumps the number up to 15. Big get there for South Carolina, getting Julian Walker, again, connection with his dad being on the strength staff and all that kind of stuff. That's not always a guarantee. There's a lot of guys out there that don't want to go to the same place their dad coached, want to get away, do their own thing, and obviously Michigan's pretty darn far away from South Carolina, but good for South Carolina to be able to land a kid right there in their backyard that, again, hopefully we can talk about becoming a significant contributor. I mentioned earlier when Chris came on that I was scrolling back through some of the Julian Walker stuff and came across Jack Veltri's video of him visiting, I think for the SC State game, where he's kind of walking through Gamecock Walk and just looking like a man amongst boys, and definitely has the build, 6'6", 250 some odd pounds that you want for an edge player. And we just talked about a couple moments ago how important building depth in that edge room is going to be this upcoming offseason with what you're expecting to lose from Brian Thomas Jr., JT Gear, Damon Clowney, and all that kind of stuff. So adding in now 4-star edge. Julian Walker is going to help you out. There's still an area that you're probably going to want to go out and address in the transfer portal too, with maybe a handful of guys. But big get, 4-star Julian Walker, again, flipping to South Carolina, adding another commitment to their class. Again, Carson Baker already committed to Texas A&M earlier on this morning. You get Julian Walker to flip from Michigan over to South Carolina. And it seems, again, based on the reporting that we talked about at the top of the hour, it does seem like, as of right now, and that can change, there's still a couple hours to go, it does seem like Landon Duckworth is trending back towards signing with South Carolina later on this afternoon. That commitment ceremony coming up at 3 o'clock, of course, at his high school out there in Alabama, and we'll give you all the updates on that, if not today, because we'll probably be off air by then, but tomorrow, when we kind of really sum up the entire class, because, again, those were the only 3 names they were really paying attention to, for South Carolina coming into today. So far, you're 1 for 2. Again, it didn't seem like the Baker thing was probably going to happen when we woke up this morning, but a lot of trends toward Walker flipping to South Carolina, and that is indeed what happened. So good get there, add to the class, and again, we'll hold our breath and hope that Landon Duckworth doesn't change his mind in the next handful of hours, and you can wrap up this class with a couple of really strong 4-star gets if that ends up being the case. And obviously, these guys, I don't know how many of them are going to be specifically coming in as early enrollees in reference. I know Beamer said, I think 9 of the 14 yesterday were going to. We'll see what Julian Walker and hopefully ultimately Landon Duckworth decide to do as well, but can be a little cap to the early signing period for South Carolina if they're able to land Landon Duckworth coming up a little bit later on in the day. But again, in case you're just tuning in, been waiting to see, Julian Walker from Dutch Fork did indeed flip his commitment from Michigan over to South Carolina just mere minutes ago. So he is added to the 2026 class, which brings the total commitments up to 15 now. We'll have more reporting on this, as well as everything else going on with the early signing day, the coaching staff changes, and the whole 9 yards as your day goes along. But that'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Coming up next, halftime show, myself and Bill Gunner with you here on The Game.